Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the episodes of a Catch As Catch Can podcast. Its continuing mission to explore strange, nerdy topics, to chat about sports, movies, TV, sci-fi, and so much more. To boldly pod where this nerd has gone before.
Captain's Log, pod date 0305.20. Welcome to the sort of new and reimagined To Boldly Pod. I haven't been on in a while, and if you follow me on social media or this podcast, you know I've kind of wanted to restructure how we do things here. We wanted to keep the content the same, but I feel podcasts are much more entertaining for not only the listener, but for the host when you get people to interact with. So what I'm going to start doing with this podcast, maybe not every episode, but predominantly every episode, is I'm going to have friends and guests come on here with me and talk about the things that we love and the things that make us so great and nerdy. And to kick it off, I'm going to have my friend Erin join me. Erin and I have known each other for years, and the whole time we've been friends, we're friends because of the TV show Mystery Science Theater 3000. So Erin's going to join me, and we're going to talk about the show that means the world to both of us. So I am joined by my friend Erin. You may accidentally hear me say Neri from occasion, but just go with us on that. And we're going to talk about something this time around that's very special to her and I and millions of other people, and maybe it is to you too. And that is the phenomenon that is Mystery Science Theater / movie riffing. So Erin, I think everybody knows what Mystery Science Theater and movie riffing is, so let me just ask you... Yes, they should. What was it that initially got you into Mystery Science Theater?
Well, it wasn't so much a what, but a who. My older brother was the one that magically had produced this tape out of nowhere, somewhere in the stratosphere, and brought it home and says, "You have to watch this. It's amazing." And I was 16 years old, and it pretty much just shaped who I am as a person, I think. So, yeah, I mean, he was in this circulation of tapes that was happening at that time. It was, I think, 1993. Or so it wasn't like, right at the beginning, but it was fairly early, and I was hooked from that first episode that I thought was love.
So what was it that drew you to it? Just something you loved the humor, you just loved the aspect. It was something that you did at home and didn't know other people did. I mean, I might have done it subconsciously in my head or whatever, but when I saw it, just like, it was so just unique and imaginative, and it was one of those kind of just scenarios you could project yourself into, and just, I mean, it was just so, I don't know, goofy and quirky, and it was kind of just who I was, and I'm like, I felt like it was made for me. And so it was like, yeah. Do you remember what that first episode was?
Of course. It was Warrior of the Lost World. I believe it was the first episode of season 3.
And we won't make this a 3-day long podcast by sitting here throwing out random lines. So we'll save that for a later time. I remember for me, it wasn't necessarily the comedy aspect. I don't know if I'm different from most Misties or not, but mine came from a love of old 50s and 60s sci-fi movies, and that's what got me watching it. And then the comedy just kind of, like you said, just spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually remember my first episode watching was one that you can't get anymore, is one of the Godzilla ones, because Toho or Soho, I'm forgetting which one it is, won't let them do it now, but yada yada yada. I digress. What one difference between Misty fans and, say, everyone knows I'm a huge Star Trek fan, is there doesn't seem to be this generational infighting like we get with my Trek fans that seems to be with Misties. People either like Joel or Mike better, but there's not that infighting like there is, say, with Kirk, Picard, and the newer stuff. Do you think that's sort of a sign of who we are as Misties?
Well, I would hope so. I hope that we're, just, it's indicative of this, later, we're all just such smart, advanced people that we're better than that. But, there's always the exception. And, I think there might be just a small amount of fighting. I know, like, reboot versus, older stuff, there was some, people that weren't sure. I mean, I wasn't sure of the reboot. When I heard of it, I'm like, I don't know. But, for the most part, I think we're kind of just like, this little Cowtown puppet show. I mean, we all love it. Is it worth fighting over? Probably not. We're just all here to have fun. So,
I mean, what's worth fighting over? I mean, people fight over politics, and that's pointless.
Right. I mean, it's comedy. It's, I don't know.
Well, let's jump forward since you brought up the reboot, and then we'll kind of work our way backwards. You said you weren't initially sure about the reboot when Jonah and everything started back on Netflix. Once you watched that first one, did you like it right away, or did it was it a slow burn?
No, I liked it right away, but here's the story. When you're in the midst of fear, when stuff starts happening and rumors are flying, they're rebooting Mystery Science Theater. That's when I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know about this. But then as soon as it came out that Jonah Ray was going to be the host and Joel was involved and all that, I'm like, okay, I am in, because I knew who Jonah Ray was from being a avid listener to the Nerdist podcast. And I knew he was like a true, like, original fan. And I had heard the podcast, the Nerdist episode where they had Joel on, and I knew they just, they had the same ideas, they were clicking and stuff, and I'm just like, as soon as I heard Jonah was going to host it, I'm like, I'm all in. And then as soon as I watched the first episode, and the host segment came on, and they sang the Reptilicus laugh, and it was so well done and so fun, and I was just grinning from ear to ear, and I'm like, nothing's changed. I mean, it was just pure fun. People would nitpick about, the riffs are too quick, and they talk too fast, and they're trying to pack too much in, and I mean, there's always going to be that. You got to settle into it a little, but I thought it was amazing. So as soon as I heard who was hosting and I watched that first episode, I was like, nope, it's great.
I didn't like it as much as the original, but I think it's sort of a nostalgia thing. I'm not saying I didn't like it because I watched them all, but there's just something about Joel and Mike in the original. Maybe it's my fascination with originals of everything, going back to Star Trek again. But you're right. It was very well done. And it's almost like it came at a perfect time when comedy was sort of teetering on this what's offensive and what isn't offensive. And then here's this harmless little show that comes back out of nowhere. And you're like, yes.
Yep. And it got everyone just kind of re-excited again. I mean, even rewatching the old ones, even if they're like, well, okay, this is fine, but I want to go rewatch the old ones. I mean, go do that because they are still amazing. And it's not a show that really ages because it was never really super topical to begin with.
Right.
It's old movies and just kind of older, obscure pop culture references. And so it doesn't really age.
I mean, right.
Just keep watching them.
You can watch an episode from, say, pull a year out of my brain, 92 or 93, and Kevin Murphy will make a comment, and you can watch it 100 times, and you're like, I finally get what the hell he meant by that.
That's the thing, too. It's like, if you're watching an episode, I mean, if it's your first episode, and you turn it on, and you're like, what's this? And you're watching, and you'll hear a joke, and you'll be like, oh my God. Like, for me, like, I lived in Iowa most of my life, and I moved to Minnesota, like, in my mid-20s. So, I was in Iowa, so I knew when they were making these jokes, like, Iowa State University, the high school after high school, like, I got that. It was like, oh my God. So I think it it makes sense that sometimes Midwesterners will kind of feel like they're like, oh my gosh, they're like speaking my language here, like Minnesotan accents, and I heard those every day, and I'm just like, this is crazy. But yeah, even if you don't get every joke, the ones that land really tend to land, and it just makes you feel like they're talking to you. The joke was meant for you.
You actually just said something that never really dawned on me until you just said it, and it has to do with the Midwestern thing. And I know it's global, but those of us here in the Midwest, you're right. You're absolutely right. Some of those jokes were like written for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like impressed that other people outside of Midwest didn't even know what it is. But hey, kudos to you, Erin.
Well, I only bring that. I mean, I didn't really realize it too much either. As you know, my husband comes from Idaho, and he would be watching, because he's also a very, very avid fan of Mystery Science Theater. Would be watching, and they would make a riff about Menards. Like I can't remember one off the top of my head. And he would be like, I don't know what Menards is, because they don't have those in Idaho. And then when he moved here to Iowa, and he says, oh, that's what Menards is. Now the Mystery Science Theater makes complete sense. And so it was like, I just got like a bunch of riffs, but I had no idea what they were talking about before this.
The first one that popped into my mind was from, I'm forgetting the movie now, but it's An Avalanche of Saving, Sir. And I want to say Corbett said the line, but I can't. It's one of the John Agar movies, but anyways.
Yeah, I know there's a riff. I know there's a Menards riff, but I can't come up with it under pressure.
Yeah, it's all good. People can find it on YouTube. So let's ask the $50,000 question that was the only real debate that Misty's ever had. Did you have a preference between Joel and Mike?
It's only a very slight preference, really, but Joel, because I consider him, the originator and the first host and the host of the show when I first started watching. And so, it's like your first doctor. I think you don't forget your first Mystery Science Theater host.
Right.
It's just, and so he just gets that little bit of an edge just because he was the imagination that originally brought it forth and did all that groundwork to get it going, and was amazing and awesome and funny. And Mike, of course, is amazingly funny and intelligent and brilliant writer. And then when Joel left, he just stepped right up, and I felt like there was not a beat in it. And it's hilarious as well. So, and then obviously we know I'm a fan of Jonah, so I have no force in this race. I think that's just I appreciate and respect them all.
You love them all. Well, I will say that I sort of lean towards Mike over Joel only because I think his sense of humor is more sort of in lockstep with mine. But much like you said, I don't really have a major horse in the race anyways. There was sort of a big thing in the mid to later 90s for Mysteries. Not necessarily didn't do well at the box office, but they came out with Mystery Science Theater, the movie, which seems to me, and I could be wrong, is probably the most popular / quoted of all of the riffs that we all know. Did you go to the theater to see it, or did you wait till it came out on date ourselves VHS?
I did not go to the theater, and I can't really remember why I didn't make it there. But in the 90s, as we're speaking of, from like 97, from like 2004, I was kind of off the map in general. I had 2 very small children, and I was not keeping track of anything pop culture related. I was barely watching television. I was too poor to have cable. I mean, all these things going on. So that's like a dead space in my life as far as entertainment. Like, I don't know any music that came out those years. I don't know, like movies. It's all just like this foggy. I have an inkling of what happened, but I wasn't present. So I didn't go to the theater. I don't remember if it just didn't show near me or I was just too exhausted or what. I don't know. But I did see it later. Rest assured.
A couple of times.
Oh, a few.
And
a few.
And in 2004 or whatever you just said, you were probably too busy building your MySpace page.
I was a latecomer to MySpace, I will admit.
Well, one thing people might not know, people don't know unless they know you and I, is you and I and dozens of other people actually met, per se, because of Twitter and Mystery Science Theater. That's how this little group of people that we all chat with on social media now met, was because of Mystery Science Theater, and that's something that's real awesome to me.
It is awesome.
And then, 10 years ago or so, we actually met for the only time at a Cinematic Titanic event, so...
It's been 10 years, huh?
Yeah, we won't talk about time, but it is what it is, right?
It is what it is, but wow. Yep. When I remember signing up for Twitter on a whim, I don't know, it was 2010-ish. Well, maybe it's 2009. In there. And I started figuring out how to use it and ended up finding a couple of people that were fans of Mystery Science Theater. And I'm like, oh, there's these people. And there's other people that like this show. Up till then, it was kind of like, I felt like an anomaly. Like, there wasn't that many people that even knew about this show. Oh, boy. I was wrong. I took on, who are these people friends with? And just started adding them because, they like Mystery Science Theater. They're my people. Add, until there was like 500 of us. And I'm like, this is amazing. Look at all these awesome people. And I started to get the inkling that it was kind of a bigger thing than maybe I thought it was.
That is the amazing thing to me about it, is how many people, not just in this country, but all over, that just loved something that you had no idea, just because you loved it and you thought you and maybe 2 people in the real world loved it. And then you actually met your husband now through it. So how about that?
That's right. What do you know? One of those things where you just start talking to someone and, hey, next thing you know, you're married. It happens.
You spit out a kid, live the rest of your life, and fade into the sunset or whatever the line is. And
Just watching Mystery Science Theater night after night until you die.
Exactly. And people might not realize this. Well, they don't. And we're going to put Patrick on the test right now, but he's going to join me in a later podcast, and we're going to talk about baseball. So what did you think? It went to Sci-Fi after it left Comedy Channel or Central, depending on which one you want to use. And after 3 years, it got canceled. Were you sad, or were you thinking it was sort of getting a little tired at that time?
Well, it was kind of, like I say, it was kind of in that time. Well, I wasn't really watching it on a live basis. Like when I had some time, I would go and like try to get more tapes from my brother, or somehow, watch it via some other way, but I wasn't like watching them every week as they came out. So I wasn't really in this timeline. So I think when it got canceled, I kind of just might have heard it in passing, like, oh, that happened? Like, I wasn't on the front line. And, but I think I just remembered thinking, like, well, heck, I had a good run, and there's plenty of episodes to keep watching, and, I don't remember having like a strong feeling, which is weird. I mean, it was always kind of there in the background, and I knew that it was always going to be there for me to watch. I mean, it was kind of strange because when I said my brother brought me my first VHS tape, I had ended up with like 7 or 8 of them. And really, I watched those 7 or 8, especially like in the first like maybe 2 or 3 years that I was a fan, like during high school and like the year after. I probably watched those like 7, 8 episodes hundreds of times. They were kind of like security blankets, like
exactly.
And I was just, I wanted to watch more of them, and I would get them occasionally, but it wasn't until like the onset of like YouTube and stuff, and just Netflix and stuff like that, I really started watching like the entirety of the catalog. I mean, I had seen other ones, but like the ones that I had on like DVD or VHS, those were my security blanket ones, and I always knew I could pop it in, and I would just, like a favorite movie or favorite album, just pop it in, and all was right. And so when I started then watching the rest, I didn't know if it was like fairly early 2000s or whatever. I started going back and filling in all the blanks that I'd missed over life, and I was just like, this show just continues to amaze me. It wasn't just a few good episodes. Like almost every episode was just phenomenal. So
yeah, they made horrible movies bearable.
Yes.
I mean, a movie
more than bearable.
You wouldn't be caught dead watching if it didn't have those guys making jokes in the middle of it. You would just keep, flipping your TV.
Yeah, but there is that sect of people that don't like it because they make fun of perfectly good movies, so they say.
No.
Or they find it, distracting or annoying to have people talking over the movie. I don't get those people.
That's funny you say that, because that was one of my father's things. Was he, like me, like the older movies, and originally he was annoyed that they were talking during it, but I think it slowly burned into him too. So he was a by proxy fan, I guess. Now, do you still have those VHS tapes, or have you long since parted ways with them?
I think that I still have a couple of them. However, I'm not sure of their location.
Do you have a VCR?
I do have a VCR. I do.
Impressive.
I know that if I have any of them, I know that I would have made sure to keep my very first episode, Warrior of the Lost World, and then of course my second episode, Pod People. yeah, those are my favorites. Those were my most played, and I think that I would not have given those up, even in the onset of streaming and having everything on DVD and box sets and everything. The nostalgia of those tapes is strong.
See, if you're asking favorites, two of my all-time favorites are two Sci-Fi Channel Japanese episodes, and it's Prince of Space and the not Phantom Planet, the Cranker. No, I'm having a mental block. Way to be prepared.
Cranker is, yeah, Prince of Space.
Yeah, Oh, Invaders of the Neptune Men is the other one.
Oh.
Have you guys seen my record? Anyways, speaking of that, my next question would be, we discussed Joel and Mike. Did you have a favorite sort of side character or?
Dr. Forrester was pretty much my favorite. As far as like Mads or like, you know, villainess, we'll say, characters. I just think Trace is an amazing everything, you know, writer, voice of Crow. I really like Trace. I like him as a person and as a performer. And funny enough, whenever people talk about like these really random side characters, I always think about Jerry and Sylvia, the mole people. Because I remember thinking I saw one of the ones that had Jerry and Sylvia on. I think maybe they were in one of the early turkey marathons, and the Mets had them over for the turkey dinner. I just remember thinking to myself, this is such a ragtag. Like, I would want to be at this Thanksgiving dinner, and I don't know what that says about me. But and I just recently learned through our friend Kate Flanagan. She had posted an article on Twitter, and I had not realized, but in this article it was talking about Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, who are like behind like the super mod like marionette shows,
right.
like the Thunderbirds and stuff. And when I was young, I didn't realize that that's who it was. And so reading this article, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's where Jerry and Sylvia come from. And I just thought they were random old people. So that was pretty cool. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, leave it to Kate to dig up something awesome for us.
Yep.
Now you see why I heavily lean on her and Kelly for timelines.
Oh, and they were some of the first, I believe anyway, of those Twitter people that just popped up and like, oh, they're talking about Mystery Science Theater. They're throwing out random riffs that I know, and like my people, friend, and friends ever since. And
yeah,
friends till the end, I hope.
We're gonna date ourselves, but this was long before the days of hashtag any fill in anything. It was, I didn't remember how we even found each other other than people you may know or blah blah blah. But
yeah, just friends of friends.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
yep.
What do you think, in your opinion, makes it such a phenomenon and draws people like you and I to it and become such lifelong fans?
I think it's one of those things that the roots go really deep. 'Cause like, there's just so many aspects of it. Like, if you like comedy, you have something in common with it. If you like old movies, B-movies, you have something in common with it. If, you're just into stuff that's randomly set in space, you have something in common with it. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, you look back and it's like, it's almost memes before they were memes. Like, it's just like every weird riff could now just be some random meme, and it could totally make sense. I don't know if that is an apt description of what I'm trying to say, but I don't know, the one-liners, I guess, maybe, like, and there's just so many of them, and they apply to multiple situations, and you can just throw one out in the real world, And even if no one gets it, you're like, that was awesome. Too. And so I don't know. And I think it's that core group of people, and then they just become friends. They start sharing their experience, because I know there's a lot of people that say this show like saved me. I was in such a dark place, and just the fun, imaginative nature of the show like sucked me in and gave me life. And so, you hear that a lot. So I think that's part of it too. It's the people that it speaks to, it really speaks to.
I agree. And you hit the nail on the head, because I think you said the show, which one thing you don't really hear people that are fans say they don't call it a show. That's because I think they almost feel like they felt like they were sitting down with friends that just happened to be on the other side of the TV screen.
Exactly.
But that's just me. So I sort of referenced it. It went away for a while, and it came back in the guise of, well, it started with the film room, which was short-lived, and now it's kind of huge again with riff tracks. Do you enjoy them as much or more or less than the originals, or about the same?
Well, I enjoy them. I wouldn't say that I enjoy riff tracks more than the show. I mean, the show just added all those extra visuals and like just extra host segments and all that stuff. It's not like more of a complete package, but granted, there's only so many episodes. Sometimes you want to see something fresh jokes, maybe more topical jokes, even weirder movies. And that's where Riff Tracks is awesome. And yeah, clearly, I mean, I have nothing bad to say about Riff Tracks. I have nothing bad to say about Cinematic Titanic. I have nothing bad to say about any of it. So I'm probably a very boring guest.
You are not, and you're a co-host. You're not a guest. I will say, before we had this conversation, before you called, I was watching a riff track. I'm forgetting the name. It's something to do with balloons or something, and it was the most...
Oh, Fun in Balloon Land.
Yes, that. It's like, oh my...
Oh, Lord.
I'm watching that. I'm like, I don't know how those guys do it. I know they get paid to do it, but man.
Yeah, that was a doozy.
What does it mean to you as a whole? Is it just something you needed in your life, or was it just something that there it was? Hello, I love you.
Yeah, I think it was hello, I love you. I didn't know I was missing it because I didn't know it existed. So it wasn't, like, it was like all of a sudden it's there and you're like, what is this? I completely connect with this on most every level. And so, I mean, to me, it was just, it was just one of those that just clicked, I didn't go out searching for it. I didn't think I needed it. I didn't know. I wasn't even really a fan. I mean, I was 16 years old, and this is, the early 90s. I didn't even know I was, like, really a fan of B-movies. Like, my brothers are quite a bit older than me. And I had seen some, they were all giant sci-fi nerds and whatnot.
Hey.
And, I'd seen, some of these heard of some of these weird B-movies that people are just like, man, who cares about this movie? But they were fans, So it was kind of just a natural progression for, my brother, Mike, to get into this show. And, we were kind of close, in the day, and he just thought that I needed to see it and that I would appreciate it. And he was right. And it really, it just kind of shaped who I was in terms of, it really helped that whole kind of be yourself. I knew a lot of people were watching the show, and it wasn't something I could go to class and talk about and have everyone go, oh yeah, I saw that. Wasn't that amazing? I had basically my one friend, my best friend, who would watch the episodes with me when I was ostensibly watching them, and she got into it too.
Laura?
So Laura, and I converted her. And, so it was just like, we could just be ourselves. We weren't trying to impress anyone by having knowledge of some pop culture show, because at the time it wasn't that, And like I said, no one really, in my, high school, this wasn't the thing to talk about or do, but, we just learned to be true to ourselves and just, dive headlong into this show and get lost in it, and felt like we were maybe getting a little smarter in the process, because comedy was so smart that sometimes you had to really research or think about, what do we even talk? Oh. And then every time you got, and sometimes you wouldn't catch things the first time. And then when you caught it and you're like, oh, God, you guys are really smart. And it kind of made you strive to be smart. And it helps you appreciate, smarter comedies. Even nowadays, the really silly comedy, I'm just like, oh, there's no intelligence or anything behind this. And so it kind of gets me down sometimes trying to watch these, popular quote-unquote comedy shows. And I'm like...
Like my podcast?
It's kind of lackluster. No. But yeah, I think that's how it shaped me, I guess, my sense of humor and my wanting to become smarter so that I knew what these people were making jokes about.
Oh, I think you're very smart.
Well, I've heard that, and maybe this is just me stroking my own ego, but Mystery Science Theater fans are some of the most smartest people.
Well, yeah.
You tell me.
I'm not going to argue that. So, thank you for doing this. It was a blast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I know it was something that you wanted to kind of conquer. So,
I did. My public speaking needs work, and I thought this would be a good way. My social anxiety needs work. This would be a good way. I mean, there's really nothing that will boost me up more than having a whiskey sour and talking about something you love. So that is what I've done.
Like I told you before we even did this, it was just two friends having a conversation about something we love, and that's what podcasting is all about.
That's right.
So did it help? Would you want to do this again?
I think so. I don't know. We'll see how the edit comes out.
Two whiskey sours next time.
What was that?
I said, do you want 2 whiskey sours next time?
Maybe 2, yeah. Make it a double.
Now you're speaking my language. Anyways, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And you're welcome back anytime to talk about anything you want, even if it's something I don't know about, which is a lot. And I can't thank Erin enough for joining me for this conversation. It's a show that means the world to both her and I and millions of other people. And something that will never change on this podcast is I don't have a great closer. So I will simply say this. Hit the button, Frank. If you have any thoughts about the topics discussed on today's podcast, let me know on Facebook or Twitter at TooBoldlyPod. And until next time, may you live long and prosper.
WLLP Spock Rock Radio.